probably no surprise to learn that we love electric cars. I mean, the clue is in the name, electrifying.com. But even fans like us have to admit that they do have a slight problem, because at the moment, most of them still cost more than their petrol or diesel counterparts. However, there is a way to get into electric motoring for just a few £1,000s, as long as you're happy that it was someone else's name on the registration document first. Yes, I am talking about pre-owned electric cars. Back to business. If you're starting to look for a used electric car, well, you won't find more choice than with this, the Nissan Leaf.
Launched in 2011, it was the first mass-produced electric car to have a sensible range, decent performance and practical space for a family. It went on to become the best-selling EV in Britain, and then the world.
That means there are thousands for sale to choose from, ranging from £3,000 up to £30,000. But what should you look for when buying a car like this? After all, there are no exhaust or head gaskets to check. In fact, here's a bit of a fun fact of the day for you. There are actually only about 20 moving parts in an EV motor compared to hundreds in a petrol or diesel, which means there's a lot less to go wrong.
This car is a typical example of the sort of car you might find for sale for around £9,500. It's a 2015 model with 36,000 miles on the clock, and it's a mid-range Acenta model, which means you get alloy wheels, sat-nav, Bluetooth and a rear-view camera. It has the 24 kilowatt battery, which should still be good for 85 to 100 miles on a full charge. The battery is out of warranty now, but these Leaf power packs are proving to be really reliable, so it's not too much of a worry. The batteries do lose their capacity over time and the more they're used, especially if they haven't been treated too well.
But there is a way to check the batteries on the Leaf. Now, you see these bars just next to the range meter? Well, when the car's new, there are 12 of them in total, and as it loses its capacity, the bars gradually disappear, showing that you won't be able to go quite so far on that single charge. Now, this one still has all 12, so it's absolutely fine, and it shows about 90 miles on the range meter when it's full. But some of the early cars, or those with high mileage, might have lost a couple of those bars, or maybe even more. And the only way to get them back is to actually replace the battery completely. So make sure you're happy with the range. It might be as low as 60 miles on some cars. Now, that doesn't mean you should dismiss them completely. If that's enough to get you to work and back every day, and actually on average we drive less than 20 miles a day, then it still makes perfect financial sense.
If you need to do more distance between charges, then you'll need to dig a little deeper and find one of the bigger battery models. There's a 40, a 30 and the newest 62 kilowatt hour available in reasonable numbers on the used market.
Talking of chargers, all Nissan Leafs, except some very rare Visia models, that's the most basic version, have 2 charging points right here at the front. This larger one is the CHAdeMO, which means you can charge at almost any public rapid charge point. And a fill up to about 80% on this car takes about half an hour. And then this is the point that you'll use for a lot of the home charging.
If you're charging at home, expect it to take about 9 hours if you have a wall box. But let me show you a little trick. Leafs of this age had the option of a 6 kilowatt onboard charger, which means they can take on power in half the time. The only way to know if the car you're looking at has it is to look on the dashboard display right here. If it shows 2 charging times, it's a 6 kilowatt.
Now, if you intend to charge while you're out and about, you're gonna need cables. Your Leaf should have at least this one. It's a Type 2 cable, which lets you plug in at public charge points. Now, you might also get lucky and find this one in the boot. Yes, it is nicknamed the granny charger, but means you can use a normal 3-pin plug socket in an emergency, but it's slow, painstakingly slow. And a replacement for these is hundreds of pounds. So if you do think you need it, then look for a car that has got one. If you do need to know more about charging in general, or anything that is perhaps a little bit confusing when it comes to charging, then head over to our electric vehicle dictionary on electrifying.com, where we explain it all for you.
Inside, the Leaf is pretty well equipped and actually seems really quite advanced for 5 years ago when this car was new. There's an app to control things like charging and heating remotely, which is really handy when it's icy in winter and helps save the battery power too. And you get sat nav as well, although perhaps it looks a bit clunky and dated now. Make sure the SD card is in this slot though. The navigation won't work without it, and replacements have to be programmed by a dealer. That's a faff, it's expensive, and they do go missing. If your car has a black interior like this one, it means it's a British-built car. The earlier Japanese-made cars look very similar, except they're beige inside and they won't go quite as far on a charge, especially in winter. Unless you're really on a budget, we say go for one of these later British-built models.
And while you're in here, check in the glove box and look for the service history. If it's been maintained at a Nissan dealer, there'll be a detailed report on the condition of the battery, and it will have had its safety, recall and software updates done. The other advantage is that the dealer will automatically pay for you to have full RAC cover for the next year. A full service needs doing every 2 years and it costs £209. while a minor service each year in between is £159. Overall, much cheaper than a conventional car.
This Acenta model has 16-inch wheels, which aren't as attractive as the 17s fitted to the Tecna model. But the tyres are much cheaper and we think it feels a bit more comfortable on the rough roads too.
Now, I've got to admit, it is a few years since I've driven a Nissan Leaf of this vintage, but you know what? In some ways, I think it's nicer than the newer car. It still goes really well and seems to be a bit smoother over the bumps. Perhaps the steering isn't quite as sharp, but compared to a petrol or a diesel car of this age, then it's incredibly relaxing to drive. And of course, you'll be slashing your fuel bills too.
You can select a B mode to give you extra charging when you lift off the accelerator, or go for Eco if you really want to eke out the most miles from your charge. This cuts the performance and the amount of heating or air conditioning to save power.
Other than that, we just recommend you do all of the usual checks to make sure the car that you're considering hasn't been written off or stolen. If a Leaf does have any evidence of crash repairs, then make sure that they've been done by someone qualified to deal with electric cars, because it is a specialist job. And you know what? If something doesn't seem right, trust your gut instinct. Just walk away, because thanks to the popularity of this car, there are plenty more fish in the sea. Or perhaps it should be plenty more leaves on the tree.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to check out our video on what to watch for when buying a used electric car. And please do subscribe to the channel.